One of my favorite quotes that have ever been said is said, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." It's not just a quote that I've fallen in love with and keep with me wherever I go, but it's also a saying from an amazing woman who left this country with positive changes that have paved the way for us and our children. Eleanor Roosevelt is among many courageous and valuable women that in her time made changes that many thought could never happen. I would like to share with you how Eleanor Roosevelt has inspired me and how her amazing life could also encourage you. Eleanor Roosevelt was a fascinating woman. She was a typical little girl growing up in the late 1800s. She was born in 1884. She grew up in a wealthy family with high expectations. However, her parents both died within 2 years of each other when she was sent to go live with her grandmother, and then her grandmother sent her to a boarding school in Europe. Upon her return to New York in 1902, she met and became engaged to her distant cousin, Franklin D. Roosevelt, with whom she later married and bore 6 children to. Eleanor was not run for politics. In fact, she spent most of her time being bossed around by her mother-in-law and raising children. And in the midst of all this, she deeply searched for her identity. She knew that she was meant for something more, but wasn't sure exactly what she was able to do, because back in those times, women had a particular role, and that's all that she was allowed to do. In 1918, after she was married for 13 years, is when she found herself. This happened upon her discovery of love letters that a woman had written to her husband, and she found out about an affair that he was having with. And it wasn't just any woman, it was actually her social secretary. So she fell into a deep depression, and instead of divorce, she decided to take the opportunity that she had as his wife and turn it around and make herself something. She had joined a group of post-suffrage feminists who were devoted to the elimination of child labor, the establishment of minimum wage, and the passing of legislation to protect workers. This was when she realized she had a particular talent for public speaking and expressive social problems, which enabled her to politically partner with her husband and help him to do his job, and he became paralyzed with polio in 1921. She attended conferences, toured the nation to see for her own eyes that the changes that needed to be made, and spoke constantly through newspaper articles and radio broadcasts. Along with her group of feminist friends, she also became close to Lewis Howe, her husband's political advisor, who helped teach Eleanor public relations and encouraged her interest in liberal restructuring. As a civil rights activist, Eleanor revolutionized women in the workplace. As World War II came to an end, it was suggested that child care centers in the workplace close as an economic need. But Eleanor was in fact responsible for the first ever government funding for these child care centers so that women could work, and so she fought against this. She advised young women to first seek out their talents and learn new skills instead of settling down too early at an age. And even during the financial strains of the Great Depression, she still encouraged and fought for women to be able to work. One of the things that she did that stood out is, during her press conferences, she only required women journalists to be there and to interview her. So in which case the news corporations had to hire women to have access to the First Lady. Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the greatest things that she ever did was the part that she played in the composition of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document outlines every human being's rights to equality and is used worldwide. She was less educated than the scholars and lawyers that made up the United Nations Commission, but her humanitarian passion earned her position as chairperson. Even after her husband's death in 1945, President Truman named her U.S. delegate to the United Nations, where she upheld her position until she died in 1962. Due to her ability and experience to act as a liaison between her husband and political advocacy, Eleanor was able to also act on behalf of every man and woman as an advocate for the rest of the world. Eleanor showed us that it's in with all of us stand up for what we believe in. Eleanor didn't need a degree or a beautiful face to show the world that she had compassion and a drive to go for what she felt was right and fair for everyone. She took her own personal struggles with depression and the inability to find her own voice, to turn it around and be the one person that could speak out confidently for others such as herself. Even despite a disapproval from Congress and even her own husband, she took every experience as an opportunity to be proactive in her beliefs. Eleanor Roosevelt lived her life during times of some of the greatest historical events, during the Great Depression, World War II, the forming of the United Nations, and also, of course, the creation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I believe that this last quote sums up her basic convictions as well as this speech. Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, and equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. And that's it.
Very good. Yeah, very good. I really enjoyed that speech.
Dick there.
Yeah.